Orders start with questions to Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Josh Babarinde.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question, and I'm glad that we've had the chance to discuss this issue on a number of occasions, and more importantly that we've had the chance to do so with one of his constituents, Staff Sergeant Pauline Cole. Pauline served our country and she campaigned on behalf of veterans beyond herself, and I know she has sadly passed away since our meeting, so I want to put on my record my condolences to her family, not least to her son Les, on whose behalf my honourable friend representing Hemel Hempstead has been in touch in recent days. As the honourable member is aware, exactly because of the service of our armed forces, £10 per week of any armed forces compensation scheme award is disregarded when calculating pension credit entitlement.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Minister for his response, and he will absolutely remember last year when I brought Staff Sergeant Pauline Cole to meet him. Pauline is a veteran who was awarded military compensation for injuries that she sustained in her service, but that led to her pension credit being cut from £77 a week to £10 a week because military compensation is considered income by the DWP. Now, I've tabled Pauline's law in her name to ask the DWP to correct this injustice and disregard military compensation from being considered in these calculations. Will the Minister work with me, together with Les and Simon McFadden, Pauline's sons, to conduct a review into the merits of disregarding this income so that we can protect our veterans for the future?
Minister.
I thank the member for his question, and I recognise the powerful arguments that he's made and that Pauline made in our meeting. The position that we have today reflects the balance between recognising service injuries and being consistent across the whole welfare system. And pensions credit is a means-tested benefit, the goal of which is to top up pensioners' income to a guaranteed minimum level. So to ensure consistency, most forms of income, including the ones he's referring to, are taken into account. But as I said, there is a partial disregard to recognise veterans' service, and the value of lump sum payments received in respect of personal injury are fully disregarded.
John Cooper.
Question number 3, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to answer questions 3, 17, 18 and 20 together. Headline unemployment is below the average rate it was under the last government, and inactivity is falling as more people are actively seeking work. We've seen 381,000 more people move into work over the past year, but there is a long-term challenge with youth unemployment, which we are responding to through the Youth Guarantee, more youth apprenticeship starts and other measures.
John Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We've heard there that youth unemployment is in fact spiking, nearly 5.3%, which is heartbreaking, particularly for young people who cannot get that all-important first job. The government likes to pretend it's a cork in a storm-tossed sea, not really able to do very much about this, but it could act. It could look at employers' national insurance contributions, and it could also look at the disastrous Employment Rights Bill, which is driving up youth unemployment.
Secretary of State.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable member will be aware that for workers under 21 there is actually a national insurance tax break where there are no employers' national insurance contributions payable unless the worker earns more than £50,000 a year, which not too many workers under the age of 21 are earning.
Jerome Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, the Minister answered a question about unemployment by giving data about employment. So let's focus on unemployment numbers. What is the increase in unemployment, general unemployment, between July 2024 and now?
Secretary of State.
Well, I did talk about unemployment, and as I said, the unemployment figures are lower than they were on average when his party were in power. We are, of course, doing everything we can to help people into work, and that's why I referred to the measures that we're taking through the Youth Guarantee, the increased apprenticeship starts, and it's a much more active approach than the one that was carried out by the last government, where they saw NEET numbers rising and did precisely nothing about it.
Sir Desmond Swayne.
They loaded costs onto employers whilst the benefits bill let rip. What on earth did they think would happen?
Madam Deputy Speaker, As I said, there are no employers' national insurances payable for workers under the age of 21. We do believe that workers should be decently paid for the work that they do, and we are responding to the particular challenge of youth unemployment, which I acknowledge is there and was there when his party were in power, with active measures like the Youth Guarantee and more youth apprenticeship starts. And I would remind the House that youth apprenticeship starts fell by 40% while they were in power.
Alison Griffiths.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently launched my Bognor, Regis and Littlehampton Business Club. Many who joined are independent hospitality and leisure businesses, and their number one concern is how difficult it is to take on new staff under this government. So what assessment has his department made of the impact of the Treasury's new jobs tax and the government's new employment regulations on job creation in coastal constituencies like mine? And what steps is he taking to mitigate these effects?
Secretary of State.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate the Business Club. These things play a very valuable role in our constituency. She asks what measures we are taking. I am grateful to the Chancellor for the extra funding made available at the budget for the Youth Guarantee, which will give hundreds of thousands more training and work experience places to young people, and very importantly, provide funding for the long-term youth unemployed to gain 6 months' work paid at national minimum rates for 25 hours a week, so that young people get used to the discipline and the duty of turning up, doing a job and experiencing the sense of pride and purpose that comes with having a job.
Lauren Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Net migration has fallen to the lowest level since 2021, and this will have a significant impact on our labour market and our economy if we do not train and support unemployed people here in the UK into jobs in key sectors. What steps is the Secretary of State taking to target back-to-work programmes, and especially those for young people not in work, education or training, to fill skill shortages in crucial areas like health and social care?
Secretary of State.
Well, my honourable friend asks an excellent question, and the fact that net migration is falling to lower levels than we've seen for some time does give an added urgency to the question that's often been posed: why don't we do more to train our own workers? And that is precisely why I am prioritising youth apprenticeship starts. They fell by 40% under the last government. We have to arrest that decline and make sure that we respond to that new situation with falling levels of net migration by training more of our own young people.
Steve Yam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wonder if the Minister might outline what the Youth Guarantee means exactly for young people in my constituency in Mansfield.
Secretary of State.
What it will mean for young people in his constituency and many others is intensive work coach training, the chance of training or work experience, and if that doesn't get them into a job, ultimately a subsidised job where they get 6 months work experience paid at national minimum rates for 25 hours a week, because the last thing we want is people leaving education and going on to a life on benefits.
Chris Finns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State will know that the levels of young people not in education, employment or training in Harlow has gone down due to the hard work of Harlow College, working in partnership with local schools like Passmore's and Mill Academy, which I visited this morning. What businesses and the Chamber of Commerce are telling me is that the number one challenge for getting young people to employment is the skills that they get leaving school. So can I ask the Secretary of State what work he's doing with the Department of Education to ensure we have a curriculum that incorporates those skills that employers so desperately need?
Well, I'm very relieved to hear that the number of young people not in education, employment or training is dropping in Harlow. If we look at recent years, the number of such people rose by £250,000 in the last year, the last few years of the £250,000 people in the last few years of the party opposite's time in government, and they did absolutely nothing about it. Now, bringing skills into the Department of Work and Pensions does give us the chance to bring skills policy and labour market policy closer together to help young people get that vital first chance of a first job.
Shadow Minister Peter Bedford, and then after I'll call Mr Darling.
Came to office, unemployment stood at 4.2%. After a brutal 18 months of job-destroying, anti-business, anti-growth policies, it now stands at 5.2%, and with young people bearing the brunt, with 1 million of them not in employment, education or training. We Conservatives believe in being in work and off welfare, and that is the best path to eradicating poverty. So will the Secretary of State break with the mistakes of all previous Labour governments and commit that unemployment will actually be lower at the end of this Parliament than when it began?
Secretary of State.
I believe this may be the honourable member's first time at the dispatch box in this capacity, but if I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry, but if I'm right about it, I welcome him to his position. Now, he asked about the forecast for the future. We had the forecast for the future published alongside the spring statement a couple of weeks ago, and in that the OBR forecast employment to rise in every year of the forecast period.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Steve Darling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Politics is all about choices, and last week the Chancellor stood at that dispatch box and had a choice. She could have chosen to reverse the jobs tax that is costing thousands of jobs for young people up and down the United Kingdom. Why didn't she?
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, whatever department I am in, I hear the same problem from the question from the Liberal Democrats, which is to support all the extra spending that is funded by revenue-raising measures, but to oppose all the revenue-raising measures themselves. If he wants NHS waiting lists to fall, if he calls for more spending every week, then he has to support the revenue-raising measures that make this possible.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much. Question number 4, please.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Universal credit is primarily reserved for people settled in the UK. In terms of trends, overall, the proportion of universal credit claimants in this country who are foreign nationals has fallen since January 2025 from 17% to 15.5% in the latest statistics, January 2026.
John Lamont.
According to the government's own figures, most foreign nationals that are claiming universal credit are not in work. The government doesn't seem to want to do anything to bring this figure down either. So will the Minister tell us how much this is costing the UK taxpayer?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman may be unaware that the proportion of foreign nationals claiming universal credit in work is 1/3 higher than it is in the proportion of people who are British or Irish claiming. So if he prefers to put it into the context that he's just suggested from a sedentary position, 10% lower in terms of people who are not in work. In terms of the specific number, it's often difficult to extrapolate those figures because universal credit figures such as these are calculated on a per household basis rather than on an individual basis. But if I am able to provide the number specifically, I will follow up with him in writing.
Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Working Age Benefits Bill is set to reach £171 billion by the end of this Parliament, yet they are doing nothing to get it under control. In fact, by scrapping the two-child cap, they've added another £3 billion. It's time to stop spending and get saving. We would stop benefits for foreign nationals and save £7 billion a year. Britain cannot be a cash machine for the world. With war in Ukraine and now in the Middle East, we must boost our national security. So why is the government continuing to bankroll benefits for migrants rather than investing in defence?
Minister.
Well, the honourable lady will be aware that this is the system that the party opposite created. But on the specific question of what we are doing to restrict access to the benefit system for foreign nationals, she will also be aware that the Home Secretary has brought forward proposals to extend the period before somebody can achieve settlement from 5 to 10 years. There is a consultation underway to move that point from the point of settlement to the point of citizenship. But in terms of whether somebody who has worked here for decades, contributed to the system and made a positive contribution to this country, we have a fundamentally different point of view if it is the position of the party opposite to suggest somebody who has made that contribution should have absolutely no access to support.
Connor Round.
Question number 5, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with your permission, I would like to answer questions 5, 12, 13, 21 and 25 together. The statistics for the second half of 2024 show the scale of the situation we inherited from the last government, where the number of young people not in education, training or employment had increased by around 300,000 since 2021. But unlike the last government, we are doing something about it. Over 3 years, the government will invest some £1.5 billion to improve opportunities for young people through both the Youth Guarantee and more youth apprenticeships. We're expanding the number of youth hubs to more areas of the country. And as I said, the change to youth apprenticeships, we aim to add about 50,000 more starts, which is a stark contrast to the situation we inherited.
Connor Round.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to draw the Secretary of State's attention to Wise Up Networks, an organisation based in my Altrincham and Sale West constituency, which enables employers across Manchester and also London to provide young people with work experiencing and mentoring opportunities for those with social and economic barriers to work, including young people with special educational needs. These opportunities lead to job offers, increased confidence and new career options for the participants. And given this government's commitment to social mobility and ensuring young people are earning or learning, will the Secretary of State meet with me on Wise Up Networks to discuss how we can support their vital work?
Secretary of State.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for highlighting the valuable work of Wise Up Networks. He is absolutely right that work experience and mentoring can play a very important role in helping young people find work. Confidence can be an issue for young people, so building that up is really important, and I'm happy to arrange a meeting between him and a minister from this team.
Lindsay Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm delighted that the Secretary of State is planning to visit the David Nieper Academy in Alfreton later this year. The school recently achieved 0 NEETs at aged 18 for the 2nd year running by working closely with local industry and teaching employability skills. Local initiatives like this should be complemented by national programmes, so could the Minister provide an update on the results of the Wakefield Pathfinder, which is seeking to trial a new locally led approach to job seeker support, and given our success in Alfreton, I wonder whether you could confirm whether Amber Valley could be considered as a location for the next Pathfinder.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for highlighting the excellent work of the David Nieper Academy and achieving NEET 0. Congratulations to them for doing that. She mentioned the Career Service Pathfinder in Wakefield, which was launched in April last year. We're testing more personalised employment support. Evaluation is underway to understand how this approach works, and I think it is right that we approach these matters with flexibility and innovation and not always do what we've always done.
Josh Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. If you're a young person with undiagnosed ADHD, you're more likely not to be in education, employment or training, and this is driven by a lack of recognition, treatment and tailored support. The expert-led NHS ADHD Task Force estimated the cost of unsupported ADHD is £17 billion to the UK economy each year. But with the right support, young people with ADHD can thrive. So can the Minister set out how the Department is working across government, including through the Milburn Review, to ensure that young people with ADHD can access the support they need to thrive in work and reach their potential?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and I know that he has spoken movingly about his own experience with ADHD. I can assure him that Alan Milburn, who's carrying out this report for us, a former Health Secretary, is in regular contact with the Chair and Secretariat of the Independent Review into Prevalence and Support for Mental Health Conditions, which has been carried out by the Department of Health. And more broadly, that we should support young people, try to increase their confidence and make sure that they do not conclude that a diagnosis means that they can't work, because that shouldn't be the conclusion reached. And many people who do have a diagnosis can go on to very productive working lives.
Annalise Midgley.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week I met with Knowsley Chambers and we all welcomed the Government's Youth Guarantee. 55,000 placements is a great start, but with no starts from the scheme currently planned in Knowsley, where young people are more likely than average to be out of employment, education and training, will the Secretary of State commit to expanding the scheme and meet with me and Knowsley Chambers to discuss how we can get more young people into good jobs in Knowsley?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend has spoken powerfully of how unemployment in her constituency has scarred generations. Let me assure her that the Youth Guarantee will become nationwide by the end of the year. We have to break the cycle of intergenerational unemployment that she has spoken about. I share her ambition to be more ambitious in this area, and I'm very happy to keep up a dialogue with her and to meet with her, or to have a fellow minister in the team do so.
Alex McIntyre.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Gloucestershire Gateway Trust do vital work in my constituency, helping those not in employment, education or training back into work. They run the Bridging the Gap programme, which provides an employability skills course and a guaranteed interview at the country's best motorway services, Gloucester Services. They also ran the GEM project, which supported over 2,000 local residents furthest from employment. They're exactly the kind of organisation that we need to work with to tackle the challenges we are facing. But the GEM project was stopped under the previous government due to a lack of funding. So can the Secretary of State visit my constituency to see the work that Gloucestershire Gateway Trust are doing and discuss how we can work with community and voluntary organisations to tackle these challenges from the ground up?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I suspect we could be here for some time talking about what the best service station in the country is. And I do have to say that I think the rugby services between London and Wolverhampton has taken things to an extra level. Now, the Gloucestershire Gateway Trust has helped create over 400 jobs for local residents. It continues to provide invaluable support. And I'm very happy to take the opportunity to visit the Honourable Gentleman's constituency at some point, diary permitting, as they say.
Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May the Secretary of State perhaps come up to Long Riston in my constituency and go to Oasis Services, where I went on Friday. They've got a five-fold increase in their business rates, as well as the impact of the increase of more than £4,000 in hiring a young person. Some people may welcome this national youth guarantee from the government, but does it not remind you, Madam Deputy Speaker, of what Ronald Reagan said? The left, first of all, if something keeps moving, they'll tax it. If it still keeps moving, they'll regulate it. And when it stops moving, they'll subsidise it.
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the truth is that the party opposite provided over a huge post-COVID rise in the number of young people not in education, employment or training, and they did precisely nothing about it. They also presided over a huge rise in the number of young people going on to sickness and disability benefits and did precisely nothing about it. And they have discovered a thirst for change only after they have left office. They have no credibility and no plan on this issue, and in contrast to that, we are responding through the Youth Guarantee, through changes to the apprenticeship system and through giving young people more hope that the government will actually help give them a chance in life.
John Mills.
Madam Deputy Speaker, a recent report from Adzuna, a large job search agency, shows youth unemployment at an 11-year high and vacancies plummeting. Job seekers urgently need the new Job Centre in Your Pocket digital service. Given current timeframes suggest it won't be ready until 2028, will the Secretary of State assure us that all options are on the table to accelerate delivery? That includes leveraging the private sector technology so we can support job seekers now rather than years down the line.
Secretary of State.
Well, we do want to support job seekers now. As I said, there is a long-term challenge with youth unemployment. We are responding to it through the measures that I've outlined. And if we can be more ambitious in those measures in the future, then we very much will.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Centre for Social Justice found that at the end of last year there were 707,000 young people with a university degree out of work and on benefits. And that statistic comes at the same time that employers in my constituency, from the furniture makers in Princes Risborough to the rocket scientists and space sector in Westcott, are saying they don't want graduates anymore, they want apprentices. So what is the Secretary of State doing in conjunction with the Department for Education to better signpost young people into pathways for learning and education that will actually help them get a job later down the line?
Secretary of State.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, he will find that this issue of graduate unemployment is an international one, and if he wants more non-HE skills, then he should support our plans to stop the decline that we saw in youth apprenticeship starts when his party were in power, direct more of the money to youth apprenticeship starts, and that is precisely what we're going to do.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My Time Young Carers in Dorset works to identify and support young people with caring responsibilities, as without information on their whereabouts, it's hard to target them for initiatives. But in a recent National Youth Voice survey, 1 in 3 young carers aged 16 to 18 reported they're not in education, employment and training. That's 8 times the rate of the rest of their peers. So what steps is the department taking to level the playing field for young carers alongside their peers so they can fulfil their potential?
I think that the Honourable Lady makes a very good point. When we look at the total number of NEETs, there are within that what we might regard as standard unemployment cases. There are a lot of health, sickness and disability cases, and there are also a significant number of young carers. One of the things that we're doing is expanding, of course, childcare support through free breakfast clubs, extending the number of free hours so that we can support young parents to try to get into work after they've had a child.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently visited Ventrola, a specialist heritage window manufacturer in my constituency. They were concerned about the recent announcements of apprenticeship reform and the impact it would have on their apprentices. They've signed a cross-party and a cross-organisation letter from industry leaders and experts to the Prime Minister about the concerns the sector have with the changes to apprenticeships, and they think they will undermine the government's ambition to generate economic growth. So what conversations are ministers having with businesses like Ventrola to ensure that these changes don't adversely impact the sector and rob young people of these opportunities and apprenticeships?
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we have a lot of dialogue with businesses about the nature of the Growth and Skills Levy and how it's used. But I have to say to him in the House, we are making a choice to prioritise young people. Yep. And it is precisely because the previous government didn't prioritise young people that we saw a 40% decline in apprenticeship starts. I don't think that's an argument for the status quo. I think it's an argument for change. That's the slogan upon which we were elected, and it's change to the system that we're going to bring.
Shadow Minister Rebecca Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last time he and I met like this, the Secretary of State lauded the rollout of youth hubs and the introduction of the Youth Guarantee as the solution to tackling the scale of young people not in employment, education or training. However, since then, apprenticeship figures have been updated. Latest figures show that apprenticeship vacancies and adverts have significantly decreased since the Labour government took office. Yep. Comparing latest figures from this academic year to the same period in 2024-25, apprenticeship adverts have fallen by 27% and the number of vacancies has fallen by 22%. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, how can the Secretary of State make the promise of a youth guarantee with this alarming reduction in the number of available apprenticeships?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Precisely because we are tilting the funding more towards youth apprenticeship starts. That will arrest the decline in youth apprenticeship starts that happened when the Honourable Lady's party were in power. Change needs to come to the system if we want to do that, and I believe it's the right choice, because if young people come off education and go on to a life and benefits, then the effect on them can be lifelong. So it is right that we prioritise young people in this system.
Adam Thompson.
Number 9, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Speaker. The Right Honourable Alan Milburn is making progress on his report. He brings valuable experience as a former Secretary of State for Health and former Chair of the Government's Social Mobility Commission. He's engaging with stakeholders across the country to increase the understanding of what's driven the increase in NEETs in recent years, and his interim report will be due later in the spring.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In Derbyshire, almost 8% of 16 and 17-year-olds are not in education, employment or training. We're indeed the worst county for it in the East Midlands. At Newt Stanton Park in Ilkeston, however, on the former site of a once famous ironworks, major investments means good manufacturing jobs are coming back to Erewash. Can the Secretary of State please share the work that he's doing to ensure that apprenticeships are available to disadvantaged young people so they can thrive instead of being left behind?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend brings valuable experience to this, and I know that he had previous experience teaching engineering apprentices at the University of Nottingham. We are committed to ensuring that disadvantaged young people can access high-quality apprenticeships and benefit from the new jobs being created in places like Erewash. And that will be through the changes to how the Growth and Skills Levy is used in the way that I've outlined to previous questions, and the extension of youth hubs in the region to give those young people who are perhaps not claiming benefit, not on an apprenticeship, the chance to get help finding that vital first job.
Dr Danny Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was speaking to Sophia in my constituency office in Winchester this morning. She's one of many recent graduates who have been applying for hundreds of jobs and not even getting replies. And these are often people of really good degrees from really good universities. Has there been an impact assessment done by the department on the effect of artificial intelligence in all its forms on graduate employment prospects over the next few years? And what work is being done with universities and other institutions who offer apprenticeships to ensure that young people are graduating with the right set of skills to ensure they can work in this era of artificial intelligence?
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the honourable member has posed a very good and important question. And the issue of graduate unemployment is by no means confined to the UK. If he looks at the United States, for example, he will find a similar debate about graduate unemployment there. The truth is there are structural things happening in the labour market. Technology is a big shift, and I think every government has to ask itself how to help young people through this transition. The one thing we cannot do is abandon them to it. We have to train people, and we have to make sure that the UK is best placed to take advantage of this big technological shift.
Gareth Entwistle. Minister.
Under the previous government, an additional 900,000 children became part of the child poverty statistics. Under our child poverty strategy published in December, 550,000 children will be lifted out of poverty by the end of this Parliament, the largest number ever in a single Parliament. This includes the removal of the two-child limit from April, which could benefit around 4,710 children in my honourable friend's constituency of Bolton North East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am proud that this Labour government will lift more than 4,500 children in Bolton North East out of poverty by scrapping the two-child limit. Can the Minister outline further measures this Labour government is implementing to help tackle child poverty and support families in my constituency of Bolton North East?
Minister.
Reducing child poverty, I think, is a moral imperative for us all and for this government in particular. What we know is that if you grow up in poverty, it damages children's health, it damages their education, and it also damages their future employment prospects. And we've just been discussing about the number of NEETs, and many of those children could move into becoming NEETs. So it's bad for the UK's economic prosperity. Now, we haven't just been waiting for the strategy in December. We'd already introduced the extension of free school meals eligibility. We'd tripled access to breakfast clubs. We'd supported the holiday activities and food programme, and we've also put £1 billion into reforming the Crisis and Resilience Fund.
Dr Peter Princey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. So we welcome the government's commitment... Number 11. Yes.
Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend, who has such good questions that he's always very keen to get to them. Over the course of this Parliament, the yearly amount of the full new state pension is projected to go up by around £2,100 a year. This reflects the Government's commitment to the triple lock for the duration of this Parliament. Payments of both the basic and the new state pension will increase by 4.8% in just a few weeks, boosting pensioners' incomes by up to £575 a year.
Dr Peter Brinsley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. So I do declare an interest, for I am in receipt of a state pension.
No way. How?
Now,
must be impossible.
We welcome the Government's commitment to the triple lock.
40.
But some pensioners in my constituency of Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket continue to live in poverty and isolation and in need of food banks. So what specific measures can the Government take to reduce social isolation and tackle poverty in this group of people?
Minister.
Well, now that he's got to it, I do thank my honourable friend for his question and for the shocking news of his age. He's absolutely right to highlight both the issues he raised. Pensioner poverty halved under the last Labour government, but it has risen more recently. That's why, as well as increasing the state pension, it's so important that we've put in place the biggest ever take-up campaign for pension credit and focused on the cost of essentials, most importantly energy, where new measures will obviously come into place in the next few weeks. But he's also absolutely right to focus not just on poverty, but on isolation. I'm sure all of us on every side of this House, when we're out knocking on doors at the weekend, meet some younger but also some older constituents who are too isolated. They may or may not be happy to see the particular member who opposite them, who comes to knock on their door, but they may be. And the general thing, more generally, whatever people think about politicians knocking on their doors, we all have in our constituencies organisations and charities like Age Cymru in Wales, and I'm sure many in his constituency, which do important work in tackling isolation amongst all our communities.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
I declare a similar interest. I read this weekend that if we grapple with the increase in pensions and benefits, we might be able to afford 15 new frigates. Now, it's easy for people on this side to attack in-work benefits. It's more difficult to question the state pension. But I wonder whether he's seen the paper from the Institute of Fiscal Studies that we should consider moving to a smooth earnings link for state pensions, which would ensure that they never fall in real terms, but in the long term they always rise with earnings. Now, he won't give me an answer now, but perhaps he might write to me about how we're going to buttress the long-term sustainability of the state pension.
Well, I thank the honourable member for his question. He's right to recognise the challenge. We have around 12 million pensioners at the moment, but that will rise to 18 million over the course of the next 50 years. Our view is that the triple lock driving above inflation increases on average amongst pensioners is the right thing to do for this Parliament. That's why we set it out in our manifesto, and that's what's driving the increases in the state pension today. But when it comes to the costs of affording frigates, I would merely point him to the fact that defence spending under this government is higher in every year than it was in a single year under the party opposite.
Shadow Minister Mark Garnier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, helping millions of people ensure financial security in their retirement is a cornerstone of his department. But in their first 18 months, this government has disincentivised pension savings through introducing inheritance tax on pensions, by removing pensions from their lifetime ISA reforms, through forcing pension trustees into mandation, and right now, most recently, introducing a cap on salary sacrifice savings incentives. Through their actions, Madam Deputy Speaker, this government is pushing people to be more reliant on the state pension rather than encouraging people to take control of their own financial future. So, which will be the next government U-turn? Will it be cancelling mandation or will it be abandoning salary sacrifice caps?
Minister.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, that was just a bit sad, because the U-turn that we're seeing is from the honourable member opposite, who's come here through the pension schemes bill, through the second reading report stage, declined to vote against the bill. I'll just quote the honourable member back to himself. He told me, the minister, that was me, will be pleased to hear there is cross-party consensus on many of the planned changes. He then got even more excited. He got more excited back in his reasonable days, before he'd been lent on by the Looney Tunes, before they wander off to reform, and he told us we broadly support measures in this bill. The U-turn is the member opposite who has let himself down.
Luke Akerst.
Question number 14, please, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Health and Safety Executive is working to make sure employers know their duties under COSH, the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health Regulations 2002, as amended, and those regulations require a risk assessment and the prevention of or adequate control of exposure of employees to hazardous medicinal products.
Okay, Curse.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will the Minister consider developing a clear statutory definition of hazardous medicinal products and subsequently mandate the development, publication and ongoing maintenance of a comprehensive UK list of hazardous medicinal products?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend makes an interesting suggestion, and I know there has been some campaigning around this. What I'd say to him is the Health and Safety Executive has not seen evidence that the current arrangements are inadequate. They appear to be robust, well established. They seem to be doing the job that's needed. If there is evidence of a problem that my honourable friend was able to draw attention to, then the HSE will certainly look at that very seriously. For now, though, the focus is on making sure that NHS Trust and others know the obligations they have under the current regulations.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for his answers? I'm not sure if the Minister had a chance to see in the paper last week some figures which indicate that those over 50 years of age have been in receipt of poisonings on a number of occasions. And now, whether they're unexpected, whether they're coming from medicinal products, whether they're coming from the lifestyle that they live, it's not known yet. But can I ask the Minister this question? Because there is uncertainty and because the numbers are rising of those who are subject to poisonings, can the Minister look into that and perhaps come back to the Honourable Gentleman, myself in the House, and let us know if there is a connection? Because I think there may well be.
Minister.
Well, I don't think, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've seen the report that the Honourable Gentleman is referring to, that from what I've seen, there isn't an evidence of a problem with the current arrangements. Now, it may be in the information the Honourable Gentleman refers to, there is some pointers, and if there are, I'd be keen to have a look at them.
Kirsty Blackman.
Question 15, please.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Scottish unemployment rate is 3.8%, and overall economic inactivity in Scotland is higher than the UK as a whole. But I'm pleased to say Scotland has had the biggest increase in funding since devolution began. It will benefit from major defence contracts, including the £10 billion one to build 5 new frigates for the Norwegian Navy, and it will benefit from trade deals that we've negotiated over the past year, which will be of particular benefit to Scotland's whisky and food industries.
Kirsty Blackman.
The Secretary of State for his response. In relation to another specific industry, 1 in 3 people in my constituency are employed directly or indirectly or induced jobs through the offshore energies industries. That is 1 in 3 people, more than that, in my constituency. Given where we are with oil and gas currently, given the continuation of what has been happening with the tax system, investment has reduced in this. Is the Minister confident, is the Secretary of State confident that their measure of the jobs lost, particularly in the oil and gas industry, is truly accurate? When people are generally not signing on to universal credit, they are doing things like moving abroad to Dubai and Doha rather than signing on for universal credit.
Secretary of State.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is of course a hugely important industry for the UK. It will be here for a long time. She'll be aware there is a transition taking place, but oil and gas will be part of the mix for a long time to come. The Chancellor met with the industry last week, and I assure her and her constituents that the industry's importance is recognised and hugely valued by the Government.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year, the SNP government in Holyrood funded nearly 9,000 fewer apprenticeships than colleges and industry asked for, robbing thousands of Scots the opportunities and starving businesses of skilled workers. Meanwhile, youth unemployment in Scotland is rising, with more than 1 in 8 young people in Scotland unemployed. Does my right honourable friend agree that perhaps one of the solutions to that problem is electing a new government in Holyrood in May under Anna Sarwar with the Labour Party?
Secretary of State.
Well, I very much agree with the final point that my honourable friend made. I think Anas Sarwar would make an excellent First Minister, and I look forward to supporting him in the campaign to come. I would say to her that the youth guarantee that I've referred to today extends to Scotland, and we want young people in Scotland to have as many opportunities and as good opportunities as young people anywhere else in the UK, and particularly to not fall into the pattern of leaving education and going on to a life on benefits.
Manuela Pettigala.
Question 16, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Well, her honourable friend, the member for North East Fife, raised this important concern in a Westminster Hall debate last week. A backlog of reassessments for the work capability assessment did build up during 2024. I'm pleased to say that backlog will have been almost entirely cleared by the end of this month.
Manuela Pettigala.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Research from Scope found that in 2025, only 7% of work capability assessments carried out were reassessments for existing claimants, compared with 19% the previous year. One of my constituents has experienced a significant deterioration in their health and urgently requires reassessment to determine whether they should now receive the limited capability for work-related activity element of universal credit. So what further urgent actions will the Minister take to reduce waiting times and ensure that disabled people are not left without financial support?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, she's right to raise this, and she's also right that the Department does prioritise initial assessments so the people without any support at all get it as soon as possible, and then reassessments are carried out when there's capacity. As I've said, the backlog that did build up towards the end of 2024 will have been almost entirely cleared by the end of this month. If there's still a problem, in the case of her constituent, I'd be grateful if she'd drop me a line.
We now move on to topical. Sarah Dyke.
Number 1, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, since we last met, we've had Apprenticeships Week, where I visited the Camel Laird shipyard in Birkenhead and the Acton Works for the London Underground in West London. I've attended the Youth Guarantee Jobs Fair in Blackpool, which connected over 3,000 local people with 90 employers, had a roundtable with business where, for example, Make UK reported 50,000 vacancies in the engineering and manufacturing sectors, and we extended the Connect to Work programme to give employment support to more than 75,000 more people with disabilities or long-term sickness, people far too often in the past simply signed off and written off.
Sarah Dyke.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Skills boot camps in Somerset give businesses in Glastonbury and Somerton the opportunity to collaborate with training providers. This helps to address persistent skills shortages. However, changes to funding allocations could see Somerset lose nearly 70% of its funding. So will the Minister urgently review the skills boot camp funding methodology? Because without it, an important pathway for residents to gain valuable skills and to support economic prosperity in Somerset is going to be compromised.
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I do appreciate the value of skills boot camps. They can play an important role in the mix of policies that we're talking about today. I hear the representation she has made for more funding. All I would say to her and her party is that if we do have more funding, I hope that they support whatever revenue-raising measures have to put in place to fund it.
Sarah Coombs.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The situation we inherited at the election with 1 in 8 young people not in education or employment is a national scandal, and I'm glad this government is going to put it right. In West Brom, there's lots of opportunities in the manufacturing sector, but lots of young people often think of a different reality when they think of factories, whereas the reality is that many of the jobs are high quality, well paid, and work with modern machinery and robotics, not the backbreaking work that many think it is. What is the government doing to make sure that job centres connect young people with the opportunities in all different sectors, particularly in manufacturing?
Minister.
My honourable friend is exactly right, and this is why we need to ensure that job centres have a really good engagement with local employers, including manufacturers. And she'll be pleased to know that there's going to be an employer round table at the Manufacturing Centre in West Bromwich on the 17th of March with the college and manufacturing employers. And also there's going to be an employer breakfast on the 29th of April, again at Sandwell College, about job centres and what they can offer, particularly around swaps and manufacturing swaps that are so important.
Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, no doubt you're familiar with the dramatic principle of Chekhov's gun. If there's a gun on the wall in the first act, it will be fired by the final scene. Ministers say the mandation power in the Pensions Bill is merely a backstop that they don't intend to use. But once they have a power in law, like a gun on the wall, how long will that intention last? Can the Secretary of State commit to this House that the mandation gun will never be fired at the expense of UK pension savers?
Minister.
Well, I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her question. She'll know that it's the industry itself, through the Mansion House Accord, that has set out that it thinks there needs to be change in the pattern of investment within our largest defined contribution schemes. They say that because it's in the interests of savers. That's what the Mansion House Accord set out. That's what the previous Honourable Member for Hexham, the longest-lasting Conservative pension minister, labelled it a good thing. And all the Pension Schemes Bill does is to put in place the mechanism to make sure that change, which the industry has said is in the interest of members, actually happens.
Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm actually disappointed the Secretary of State did not rise to answer this important question when the savings of millions of people are at stake. Now, the Pensions Minister needs to stop conflating the voluntary Mansion House Agreement with changing the law to give government the power to direct pension fund investments. The two are not the same. Both the Association of British Insurers and Pensions UK are urging the government to drop the mandation power from the bill. Now, the Pensions Minister has a tendency to think he always knows better, but he's not always right. Apparently, the Edstone was his idea. Let's not have people's retirement savings suffer the same fate as Ed Miliband's quest to become Prime Minister.
Exactly.
Government should not be giving itself control over how people's retirement savings are invested. That's what mandation does. I'm against it. The Pension Sector is against it. Savers are against it.
Yes.
Will he listen and change tack?
And possibly answer the question.
The Honourable Lady is going to be absolutely furious when she finds out what the front bench opposite did when the Pension Schemes Bill came through this House, because all this sound and fury now, but when she chose whether she wanted to vote against the very power that she now says is incredibly dangerous, she went for a snooze. She did it at second reading, she did it at third reading, and she's going to be even more angry when she finds out what honourable members like the Right Honourable Member for Salisbury and the Right Honourable Member for Godalming and Ash have called for, which is the mandation of pension schemes in the UK to invest...
Order. Can I just remind members and ministers that it's topical questions, so short questions, short answers. I now call Lindsay Farnsworth, followed by Steve Darling. Lindsay Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was pleased to see that the school's white paper outlined significant reforms to support children with SEND. Can the Minister outline how they are working with colleagues in the Department for Education to make sure that efforts to tackle the NEETs crisis, including the new apprenticeships and youth guarantees, will be inclusive and accessible to young people with SEND, ensuring that they have the opportunities to progress into fulfilling careers?
Well, with the Minister for Skills now being joint with the DFE and DWP, we have very clear collaboration. We've already launched 8 Youth Guarantee Trailblazers, which are testing innovative approaches to localised support for young people who are NEET or at risk of becoming NEET, including targeted SEND support. And we also have, of course, the Milburn Review into young people in work and how better to support them.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Steve Darling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week, Citizens Advice shared a report into access to work that confirmed many things that we know from our own postbags around disturbing delays within the access to work system, both on processing applications and reimbursement. Will the Minister share with us what recovery plan he has in place, and when will this get up to a 28-day turnaround for these important issues?
Minister.
What I can tell him that the new Disability Advisory Panel is going to be working with us, chaired by Zara Todd, who he may know, working with us on reform of access to work. We've increased the number of staff working on this from 500 to 650 in the past couple of years. That is reducing some of the delays that we saw as a result of the big surge in applications, and I'll be glad to keep him posted on further progress, including our proposals for reform that we bring forward as soon as we're able to.
Amanda Hack.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently met with my constituent Dean. He's in his 60s and wants to return to full-time work after a bit of ill health. With over 15 years' experience in HR, he's struggling to get over the line and get that next job. Dean feels he's being turned away not just because of his age, but because of his medical condition where he needs a cane to walk with. What work is the Minister doing to support people with health conditions like Dean back into work?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is right to raise this. She'll perhaps know of the Connect to Work service that we've introduced, which will be available across the whole country by the summer of this year, which is a methodology for it that's been defined centrally, but it's being entirely commissioned locally. And the feedback we're seeing so far is that it's doing a very good job in supporting people in exactly the kind of circumstances that my honourable friend describes.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the Minister think it's reasonable that my constituents have not received a penny of carers allowance for the entirety of last year whilst caring for their daughter living at home with them, and that whenever they phone the department, they're simply told, case awaiting update?
Minister.
Well, I'd be very grateful if the honourable gentleman would drop me a line about that case. I'll be very happy to look into what's happened.
Laura Kirk-Smith.
Deputy Speaker, I know the Minister has been making progress with the review of the PIP assessment. I hear from many people who struggle with the complexity and the mistakes in the current system, including one lady with severe spinal and nerve conditions who had her payments reduced after DWP didn't receive the medical evidence that she'd sent. Does the Minister agree that any changes to the system must be humane and fair, but also that the system must become easier to navigate and easier for people to trust?
Yes, I do agree with that, Madam Deputy Speaker. As she will know, we've set up a review of personal independence payment, which is underway at the moment. We've got a steering group of 12, almost all of whom are disabled people, plus me and two other co-chairs. We had our third full-day in-person meeting last week, and the issues that she raises are exactly the ones that we're going to be wanting to work through in the course of the review, which will report to my right honourable friend in the autumn.
Ian Sollum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With nearly 1 million young people not in education, employment or training, and the Growth and Skills Levy launching less than a month away, as few as 8 courses have been confirmed with no funding rates, no duration and no assessment detail published. So how is anyone, a young person planning their future, a college planning its provision, or an employer planning their workforce supposed to act on a blank page?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, he's right to point to the disparity of information sometimes available on apprenticeships compared to university courses. I think this is something we need to address, improve the information and make sure that young people embarking on an apprenticeship are treated with just as much esteem and respect as someone following a university course. So information is very much part of the changes that we are pursuing.
Catherine Fuchs.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sadly, I've been contacted by a number of constituents facing a hidden problem in the child maintenance system. Their ex-partner has found ways of hiding their income to avoid having their monthly payments increased or paying the arrears they owe. Can the Minister share with me the work the Department is doing to ensure that income assessment of paying parents is accurate, agile and serves the children it's meant to support?
Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question? She will be pleased to know that there are a range of interventions underway, including reviewing the child maintenance calculation across the piece. But what I would also say to my honourable friend is that if she has specific cases causing her concern, if she'd like to share them with me, I will ensure that these are referred to our specialist financial investigation unit that look into such cases where we fear hidden income.
Callum Miller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently met with a constituent who is a victim of domestic abuse and, like too many others, has been let down by the child maintenance service. She's experiencing severe financial pressure as her ex-partner refuses to make maintenance payments. She complained to the CMS 11 months ago and has not yet received a response. To make matters worse, the CMS has refused to communicate with her and failed to provide her with documentation that's essential to an ongoing tribunal. Will the Minister meet with me and my constituent to understand what has gone wrong in this case?
Minister.
Definitely and soon.
Ewan Steinbank.
Deputy Speaker, Powering Futures are a fantastic social enterprise based in Falkirk with an oven-ready project which will deliver at least £1.6 million in quantifiable social outcomes, including addressing youth unemployment in every local authority in Scotland. With funders identified, will my honourable friend meet with me to discuss what support his department may be able to offer Powering Futures?
I thank my honourable friend for his question, and I'm very happy to make sure he gets a meeting either with me or with another minister on the team.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At least £10 billion a year is being paid in universal credits to households with at least one foreign national residing there. Truly shocking figure. But what I want to know is how much is being paid in PIP, carers allowance and attendance allowance to foreign nationals.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, let me say I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for the retraining scheme that he's running for former Conservative MPs. I am not convinced, though, that a change of colour is really a change of heart. To the heart of his question, we do believe that if people have worked here and have contributed over the years, then they are entitled to the benefits that the state provides. And the logical conclusion of his position would be to deny that to many people who've lived and contributed here, sometimes for decades.
Jane Kirkham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister will know that working in the visitor economy is so good for young people and their confidence. Yeah. We have an extensive Cornish hospitality sector who would like to be part of the Youth Guarantee pilot. Would the Minister consider meeting with us to discuss?
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we're all going to have busy diaries after this session. Let me pay tribute to the Cornish hospitality sector. She's right. These are great opportunities for young people. I'll make sure she gets a meeting with someone.
Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. British pensioners living in the EAA, United States, and up to 20 other countries get their pensions uprated, but those living in Canada, Australia and New Zealand do not. Campaigners know the government won't go back and uprate frozen pensions respectively. But will the government commit to a review of uprating frozen pensions for British pensioners going forward?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question. He'll be aware that the policy on overseas uprating is a long-standing one under governments of all parties, including the Liberal Democrat coalition government, and I'm not going to make promises that won't be delivered, so we're not going to be changing that policy in the near future.
Liam Conlon.
Speaker, today the Guardian have published an article showing that up to 13,000 survivors of Ireland's mother and baby homes living in Britain today could lose their compensation payments if they accept the redress scheme from the Irish government. My campaign, Philomena's Law, which is backed by public figures including Darragh O'Brien, Siobhan McSweeney and Steve Coogan, would resolve this by ensuring that payments are ring-fenced. Will the Minister consider the merits of this case and agree to meet me to discuss it further?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the whole House will be aware that the women who lived in the mother and baby homes sometimes went through terrible experiences. I commend him for his campaign for some measure of justice to these women. We are examining what we can do in these cases. There will be a small number of these women living in the UK, and I can assure him that help is under active consideration.
Dr Al Pinkerton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My Surrey Heath constituent, Michael, who is autistic, lost his personal independent payment in January when he was moved to the Employment and Support Allowance without explanation, a decision that he is now attempting to appeal. Given warnings from the National Autistic Society about barriers autistic people face navigating the benefit system, can I ask what steps the Department has taken to improve communication and staff training to better support neurodiverse claimants?
Minister.
Well, the honourable gentleman is right to raise this, and it's fair to say, I think, that the PIP application process is old-fashioned and clunky and difficult for many. I mentioned earlier on the review of PIP that is being undertaken at the moment, and some members of the steering group that have described applying for PIP as dehumanising. The health transformation programme is underway. We are improving the process, including in a trial number of postcode areas, claims being fully online. But I hope coming out of the review will be a broadly much better approach.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. An important component of this government's drive to reduce the number of NEETs is encouraging Job Centre Plus to work innovatively in constituencies such as mine in Rugby. So will the Secretary of State join me in commending their work they are organising with me at Jobs Fair on the 16th of April, 10 till 1, at the Indian Centre in Rugby, and of course he or his ministers would be very welcome to come and see their innovation in practice.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've already praised rugby once during this session. Let me do so for a second time. I can't promise to attend this jobs fair, but I can say that these fairs can play a very valuable role in bringing together employers who need work with employers who need staff with potential employees who need jobs. And I saw that myself in the very sizable Blackpool jobs fair that I attended a week or so ago.
And the final question, Gagan Mahindra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Emma from Abbots Langley in my constituency has to comply with strict timeframes for her job as a frontline worker within a local government adult care service. Despite this, as a deaf person, Emma's video relay service allowance has been reduced by over 75%, meaning it is significantly below her working hours. Given that the waiting period for access to work reconsideration cases can span up to several months, how can the Minister assure my constituent that this delay will not undermine her ability to work?
Minister.
Well, I can say to him that there is a serious problem with delays with access to work. The application backlog on the 16th of February was 66,699. That's why we've substantially increased the number of staff working on access to work. Those who have got a job in the offing are prioritised for applications, but if he'd like to drop me a line about the particular case he's got in mind, I'll gladly look into it.
And that concludes questions, and I'll just give a few moments for the front benches to swap over.